Oops.
Okay, I just want to go ahead and get started. My name's Jen Glazinski. I'm the team manager for the Satushek team. And joining us today is Robin Holbert from Bellingham Travel and Cruise. And she's going to have a conversation with us about cruising, traveling, who's choosing to cruise. And I know we're all really excited. There's a lot of us that love to travel. So I'm going to just go ahead and get started. Robin, what led you to the travel industry, and how long have you been a travel agent?
Now, it's been a long time. I've been in the business for 27 years, and I worked for the previous Bellingham Travel and Cruise. That was second generation here in Bellingham for 50 years. I worked as the bookkeeper, and so sort of saw the back room of travel and kept waiting to go on a trip. All the agents were going on trips. And unfortunately, I did not have a backup, so I never got to go on a trip. And when our boss decided it was time to retire, he was faced with shutting down a business that had been a long time here and had a lot of people who loved to patronize it, and a lot of us who were not ready to retire. So I decided to step up, and he gave me a wonderful deal to buy the business and move the location. And I took the most experienced and amazing team of women that I've worked with for a long time along with me. So here we are.
Awesome. And when was that, Robin? How long have you owned the business?
That's the funny part. 2019.
Oh,
yeah, we were a little worried. Would people follow us to a new location, new ownership? We had a record-breaking year. We won a prize, and then we all know what happened in 2020. So we've been swimming to make up ever since, but We're starting to see record numbers again traveling.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations for surviving COVID.
Thank you.
Sounds like you're standing strong and have a really great business. So on that note, tell us some of the advantages of using a travel agent, especially when we have so much technology and people are, making their own vacations.
I think the experience that we bring to the board, the education that we pursue, we go on a lot of trips. I try to keep people knowledgeable with what's going on right now. Unfortunately, after COVID, travel has become a lot more complicated. There's a lot of different rules in a lot of different countries, hoops that you have to jump through. We recently had someone visit a country not realizing that if you had a passport that expired within 90 days of when you were there, you couldn't enter the country, and they were turned back at an international airport mid-trip. That's not a pleasant experience. So we are in the know of things that you may not be, that may not come up if you're just pointing and clicking. Also, we have an aversion to intermediate engines like Expedia, because we have a lot of people that call us. They're halfway along their trip, a flight gets canceled, they go up to the desk to get help, and they say, "Oh, we're sorry, you didn't book with the airline, you booked with Expedia. Give them a call." Doesn't work. We saw a lot of unhappy campers during COVID. We really learned that we have a value, and we're here as people that you can call on the phone when you're out. You can come back in and choke us or reward us when you get home, whichever the case may be. And I think that's invaluable. It's a lot more security.
Do you feel like you have a specialty, an area that you specialize in?
It has come to be cruises, which we didn't start out, maybe because we put this on the wall. We put the idea out there into the universe, but Bellingham seems to be crazy for cruises. We have this week, a couple of days ago, 26 people heading out to Europe to board cruises in different places. And I mean, that's larger than pre-COVID numbers on any given day. So I think that we've become experts in cruising due to demand.
And where are people going? Is it, you mentioned Europe.
Yeah, that's the fun part. I made some notes because I just wanted to say that the right person to cruise, we say the right age is 24, which is in 2024. Everyone now, because cruising has opened up to be as costly or as affordable as you want. It can be as active or as passive. You can lay in a spa or you can go out on amazing adventures. The different ships offer very different family-oriented, singles-oriented, different kinds of travel. So I just thought it would be fun to make notes of where Bellinghamsters have been going lately that I found interesting. So we have a grandparent, this is not exotic, but it's very clever, who takes his grandchildren away from their parents, giving them a vacation, a staycation at home, and he takes them on a Disney cruise every year, which is lovely because the cruise is sort of a closed container for children that can't get too far. And the cruise line, especially Disney, does character breakfasts, they do fun clubs for kids, swimming pool parties. And so they're pretty much doing the work while the grandma and grandpa can just enjoy the kids and the parents get a break. So I think that's exciting. We have a group of friends at the other end of the spectrum. A Disney cruise can have thousands of people. It's Disneyland on the sea, so it's big, it's a different experience. We have adults who chose to rent a barge and travel up a river in France. So there's 16 cabins, and they took enough of a group with them that the whole barge belonged to them. And they found in France, it was great. I mean, all kinds of wonderful food experiences, getting off the barge, shopping at a local market, bringing back the produce. They could have the chef prepare a beautiful meal. They could assist with it. They found that people in France were still very grateful for the role we played in the World War after all these years. And they had French people coming out to the ship, joining them in the evening, having little parties. Someone admired a glass in one of the pubs that they went to during the day. They took bicycles out and roamed around. And before they left, the gentleman came up in a truck and brought them a case of those glasses to take home. It's like, okay, that's a pretty personal experience. We've done some expedition travel, which didn't used to be a norm, but I think a lot of people are trying to hit their bucket lists after being cooped up for a while. So we've had some people do expedition ships, which are a little less luxurious, still very comfortable, but more scientific. So we had a lady travel with her son along Canada and then up the coast of Greenland, and she saw polar bears. They saw dazzling northern lights. I have pictures on my phone, but I'm not going to go there trying to do that. It's not good, but she sent some amazing pictures. And, you know, you're not packing and unpacking every day. You have all of the amenities paid for, so it can be costly, but we found that figuring even an expedition excursion, if you figured it out piecemeal, hotels, food, entertainment, all the things you're getting on board, you're not spending more. So an amazing adventure like that can be within anyone's reach. We've also found women want to travel, but they're still a little nervous in certain places. So we've sent a woman on an all-women expedition in Egypt. It was led by a woman. She met some other lovely ladies. They were referred to as the goddesses while they were out there.
I love it.
And they ended up cruising down the Nile, which was amazing. The ship was a small, older river ship with all the wood interior, kind of your old world luxury. One of the evenings they stopped and a man came from ashore with caftans, these incredibly ornate caftans that you could rent for the evening or you could purchase to bring home. And so I have this amazing picture of these 15 goddesses decked out in Egyptian wear. And then the next day, pictures of them on their camels at the pyramids. So it's a lovely way for women to travel if they're on their own, a little more secure. Gosh, trying to think of other, we have some people traveling locally, some couples that have small homes, and we are in the ultimate place. You can travel without a passport to Hawaii by cruise from Seattle, do a round trip. Amazingly relaxing if you don't want to be running about having adventures. We recently went on a short cruise and found that the spa was pretty much all we needed. So you can do the Hawaii thing from here. We've had people invite relatives to Bellingham and not have a lot of space. So we have a couple who are taking their third group of relatives the third summer to Alaska on an Alaska cruise. I mean, everyone's paying their own way, but they're having this lovely family adventure together. And Alaska basically is the bucket list for much of the world. They put the most beautiful ships, and all different size ships do the Alaska journey. So definitely a lot of Alaska. We've had some Tahiti, which has been interesting, a little more of the Cook Islands and South Pacific cruising than we used to have, which is also a great adventure. We had an older client go 28 days down the Nile. Not just anyone can be gone for 28 days. I'm sorry, I said the Nile and I meant the Amazon. So that was another bucket list trip. And I'm working on an interesting group right now, which is if you want to do a fundraiser, there are a lot of cruise lines that will help you do that. So my former boss was a Rotary member, did a lot of great community things. But this is pretty interesting. You can sell cabins on a cruise ship, mark it up by $60 per person. So that $60 starts your fund. A lot of the cruise lines will match you, say, $40 to your $60. If you sell 15 cabins, you get a free cabin, which the cost of that can be kicked back to you as more money for your charity. Or you could do like raffle tickets and raffle off each cabin that you get for free. And so it's a really interesting way. I haven't done this yet, but I've talked to some people in the industry, and some people sold 50 cabins and made like $10,000 to $15,000 for the Rotary Club. It's like, that's my kind of working for the Rotary.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing.
Where did they go for that cruise, Robin?
I believe they did a Caribbean cruise, which is always
Caribbean.
very popular during the winter, always a go-to.
Mhm.
Or I did want to mention also, I'm going on a cruise myself, a short working cruise, but this is the time of year when the ships reposition from going to Alaska. So there's a lot of 3 to 4 night offerings, very, very affordable, a great place for a mother-daughter trip down the coast, hang out in the spa. I had one woman take her daughter for her 21st birthday. Again, a contained area to do their celebrating. And they did some shopping in San Francisco and flew home. So it's a nice little affordable jaunt down the coast.
Cool.
Yeah, forget that we have so much to offer just locally, right? You don't have to go to super exotic places if you don't want to. And if you wanted to just jump on a boat right here or out of Seattle, it's not very far away.
Exactly.
Well, I was going to ask you who your typical client is, but I feel like it's everybody. You gave, I wrote down 10 different examples here, and it runs from the grandparents taking their kids on the Disney cruise to people looking for a solo 28-day expedition on the Amazon.
Yeah.
But do you feel like there is a kind of a niche clientele? I mean, this is awesome to see like that there's so many user groups out there.
I would say probably the largest demographic right now is maybe 45 and up. It does tend to be a little bit older. There's a lot of young people doing the Caribbean, doing a party cruise kind of atmosphere, doing Mexico, but the 45 and up tend to be pretty educated. There's a lot of cruise lines. National Geographic does some amazing programs on the Great Lakes. They do Europe. You can do history. You can go in depth with food. So they tend to be a clientele that has some very serious hobbies that they would like to enrich and pursue on cruises. And the cruise lines are hearing that and offering some really unique. We have a young man, once I've said 45, I think he might be a tad under, but he has traveled with REI, which I did not realize had stopped doing their international adventure travel trips. And so he just booked with us for a Galapagos, and I mean, he's doing a very intensive, I mean, they test things about his physical acumen before he can even do the things he has lined up for that trip. But I'm very impressed that it's there for him.
What are, you listed off all of these great, amazing cruises. Are there any that stand out, some of the more unique cruises, or what are some of your favorites?
Oh boy, all of that. I love the river cruises just because it's a little slower paced. There are smaller ships, so less people. I'm not a big, huge neighborhood on the sea, which some people are. They can go into ports that the larger ships cannot. So you're going to meet sort of the unspoiled areas that haven't seen huge cruise ships and have a little more of an intimate experience. I think that that's a good thing. I loved the northern cruise up the coast of Greenland. I think that was amazing. That is a bucket list for me. We have done some Antarctica. Like to do that. We've done some cruises around the outside of South America and around Africa. So pretty much Japan also is a up and coming location. And we have one agent who traveled there, and you go around the outside of the island and then do these day trips into the interior. And some of them included like spending the night in a Buddhist monastery out in some lovely hill and then coming back to your ship. So you could just pack a little day bag and off you go. And I think that's a real beauty of cruising, is that you have that base and you can still go in deep, but return back and not have to be trekking about.
When you say slower and smaller group size, how many people are on these smaller boats, like the river cruises that you talked about?
Yeah, the one in back is I'm not going to say the name. We all know, we get their brochures every day probably, but about 150 to 200 people. Whereas at the other end of the spectrum, you can get as high as 7,000 people on some of the new mega ships, which I want to go,
Yeah.
but we have people who are calling and saying, oh my God, when is that going to sail? I want to go on the 3-story water slide. It's like, oh, okay. Not my cup of tea, but it's varied, completely varied from small to large.
My daughter is 12 years old, and so I'm leaning more towards family oriented cruises. So beyond Disney, what else is out there for families or people with younger kids?
Yeah, I think most of the major well-known cruise lines, Princess, Royal Caribbean, all of them do a great job at having kids clubs. I think when I talked to Lori originally, we did a coastal cruise earlier in the year, and we were trying to get away from kids. We're moms here. It's like, oh God. And we saw no children. So it's like, oh, this is great. I didn't realize they didn't have children on this cruise. And the last day we're sitting up by the pool, having our last cocktail, and this row of probably 20 children or more goes marching by, and they've got their little binoculars, they're doing some activity. And it's like, where did they keep them? So they were there, but the ship was big enough that we didn't run into them blissfully for us.
We talked about, I get that these cruises run the gamut on price, right? But I guess just maybe throwing a few different ones out there, like the 3 to 4 day cruise down the West Coast, something.
Yeah,
how
it's
much
extremely affordable. The 3 to 4 day cruise can, at times, you can get in for about $800, which is, if you think of 4 nights in a hotel, not counting the food, the entertainment, the casino, the shopping, unfortunately, and let me say it again, spa.
Yeah.
We loved that. I'm not a spa person at home. And it's interesting because when you're on the ship, you just do things that you wouldn't normally do. And they have these lovely heated thermal beds with, like, I have to say, you all sell primo waterfront property, but this has you beat. You're in the front of the ship with the beautiful windows all around, lying on your thermal bed. They fling some herbs on the heater and it just smells lovely. And it's like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that could be yours for pretty affordably priced.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And then,
That's
you know,
amazing.
some of these river cruises, you know, that you talked about, the smaller boats, you know, are this like 2 weeks at a time, or how long are
Tends to be. Most people that, you know, travel to meet a river cruise, they're going to do the 14-day, a longer 9 to 14 days, usually sometimes 16 days. And they're a little more expensive, but it tends to, a lot of the cruise lines include air. And I do recommend doing the air with the cruise lines. We've had some people playing the mileage game, which I get, and using their mileage. But if you end up halfway to your cruise checkpoint and something goes wrong with the flight and you're responsible, you're going to get left behind. Whereas if you're doing their air, they make sure to get you there, or at least I would say leave a day early, so you're where you're supposed to be without having it be very stressful. But those cruises can go from $8,000 to $15,000, $20,000. It depends on how luxurious of a cabin you choose, because again, you can get in lower for choosing the little tiny squares along the bottom of the ship. Those are cabins, and some people do those. And I've seen people go on a really great cruise for probably $5,000 or $6,000. That's air getting to Europe, going on one of these. But they're not in their cabins anyway. They're up top living the life. So if you're good with that, you don't have to spend a lot on cabins, whereas the others have balconies. So if you're more into spending some time on your own and watching the beautiful cities go by with a glass of wine, then you're going to spend a little bit more.
Who else has questions?
I do. Robin, this is so exciting. I love hearing about trips and traveling. Is there such a cruise as a like in Africa where there'd be a safari / cruise? Or is that not a thing? You know, like an African safari.
No, you could do that. You could do, a lot of people do a cruise. I have a lady right now who did kind of meandered around Spain, flew up to Venice, and is now cruising back from Venice, stopping in Croatia, stopping in Italy, stopping in France, and ending back up in Barcelona. So there are cruises that would go around Africa, and then you could disembark, do a safari, and fly home. That would probably be the way to do it. And that's what we're good at, piecing together more than one moving part in a trip, because you want to make the most of it when you fly 14 hours to get somewhere.
Have you heard of, I think a financial advisor told me this, that there are people that it is so much cheaper to be on a cruise than to get assisted living, and that people literally just like go from cruise to cruise so they don't have to pay assisted living. Have you ever heard of that?
Well, I think I have some clients that almost do that. I have a lovely lady who will say, oh my God, I don't have anything planned for the end of 2025. And she truly lives a very modest apartment lifestyle here and is gone, I would say, at least part of every month. And she finds that affordable. I don't know of anyone who's done the deed of living aboard. There is a ship called, there's one called The Story and one called The Narrative, which you might, as realtors, be interested in, where you buy a suite on this ship for a certain number of years. It's almost a timeshare idea, and they go all around the world. It's amazing. I got to see it docked in Seattle once, and it was like,
interesting.
wow, very elegant, very lovely, and according to them, just as affordable.
Yeah. Okay. I also have a question about COVID. Is there, sorry for my voice.
Don't sound like you have it. Don't do
I don't
that.
have it.
No.
Is there a problem? You know, how is COVID? Is it an issue anymore with cruises? Because it was a really big issue for a while. So can you talk about COVID and cruises?
I can. Unfortunately, it has not gone away. I think we've become tired of dealing with it. It is not as virulent. It is not as common. We have had people contract COVID on a cruise in the recent past, but not nearly as many. And they did come home mildly ill. They were not quarantined, and most of the rules for the ships have gone away. I mean, people wear a mask if they choose to. So we suggest eye mask on the airplane, eye mask in a crowded situation still, and especially this time of year where we're starting to go into fall and back to school and things, it seems to be rearing its ugly head a little bit more. But there's a fantastic, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's Sherpa travelfreely.com, and it's a site you can go on that keeps up with all the different countries and sort of where they're at on the spectrum of having a problem, what rules they have in place. So we try to keep abreast of that because it's, unfortunately, it could change. At this point, I would say no big problem at all, but not unknown. So I would recommend caution. Of course, I'd recommend caution going to the grocery store here in Bellingham as well.
Right. Thank you. So when's your next cruise or your next trip, Robin?
Well, again, it's kind of dull. Our next cruise, we are going to Vancouver. It's kind of fun though. You could do this. I would love to help you. We go on working cruises. We belong to a consortium and it's an educational thing, which is great because the actual cruise is educational. We're on a different cruise line each time we go, but we're just jumping on a princess ship that is repositioning. So we're doing the Vancouver to San Francisco in mid-October, which I'm expecting could be a little bit bumpy, but I'm okay with that. I can do that. That's another recommendation. Always choose the middle of the ship, the middle lengthwise and the middle up and down, because that's your stability if you do tend to get seasick, but not a very exciting cruise. I'm waiting for one of these. I'd love to do the Christmas markets. It's a very lovely.
Can you talk about that? I've been reading about the Christmas markets in Europe and like what are some, you know, what are the best cruises to go on with those? Because there's a lot of those. Is that correct?
There's a lot of them, and all the river cruise lines, Viking being the largest and most well-known, and probably I'd say middle of the road expense wise. There's other cruise lines. Ama Waterways is a very good cruise line that does Christmas markets, but they all pretty much go along the circuit. But it's just amazing. I mean, the towns in Germany particularly, it's just like being a kid at Christmas again. The lights and the whole array of hot drinks and hot nuts that you can eat and lovely souvenirs, and it's just very pretty.
That seems like a neat one to do with a family, you know.
I think it would be.
Any age likes Christmas.
I'm glad to hear that. Yes, we do. So Robin, I've actually never used a travel agent, and I don't know, how do you get paid? How do you get paid?
Well, that's a very good question, and I do appreciate you asking, because we learned a hard lesson during COVID. We get paid by commission only. So we do get paid commission. The cruise line don't feel that you're going to spend more with us because of that, because you don't. Oftentimes we're privy to better deals than you're going to find on the internet, but we do get paid by commission. During COVID, we worked for probably a whole year and a half for free, and we were busy getting refunds for our clients. No one knew what to do. Not too many people ended up with nothing, but some ended up with nothing because certain companies would not honor the fact that they should give back money when the people didn't get to go. So for more complicated European trips now, when we're piecing together hotels and travel on land more than on the cruises. The cruises are simple. It's not something we would feel right charging for, but we are charging a consultation fee of a couple of $100 non-refundable, where we give you a certain number of itineraries to choose from and just give our expertise to planning. You can look at all the hotels, look over what we've done. If you choose to book, great. If not, we're not walking away with nothing. That was a hard lesson. And we are professionals. It's an industry, almost, I don't want to say like hairdressers. There's certain industries where you just take for granted that these people are there for you and don't see it as a profession. And it really is. I mean, I have people that have amazing knowledge and expertise, and it's just a joy to hear everything they know. I've had people driving out in Australia, and we have a woman who's called a premier Aussie specialist, and she's paid a lot of money and attended a lot of school, almost like college, to become that. She's traveled to Australia every year for a long time. She's not doing it any longer, but people will call and say, oh, I'm outside Coober Pedy. I'm in the middle of the desert. You know, my gosh, we just don't know what to do. We missed our connection doing this. Oh, you want to take a left at the next, big tree that you see out there. And there's this great little cafe. I mean, I'm serious. This woman astounds me. And she definitely can do Australia like the back of her hand. But she's one of those travel agents that has photographic memory, and I've called her from airports and she said, oh, you want to go to the Sky Lounge? Here, let me see where you are. Oh, okay. And guides me along. And I hope that we all could be as helpful.
Yeah.
Besides cruises, what are some of the other trips that you organize that are kind of fun, or that you maybe can talk about a little bit?
We are doing kind of a fun thing that we used to do in the past. Group travel for my owner's mother was the bread and butter. I mean, she took everyone I meet that's of a certain age has been on a trip with her. And after COVID, people have liked the idea of traveling in a little bubble of people that they know, so that if you're on a bus, your whole immediate area is people that you know, that you're with, you're in the hotel with them. So we are doing some group travel. And I have a small group leaving this week, actually, at the end of the week, to go to Ireland. And they're meeting up with a fantastic tour company and are taken care of from the minute they leave here. A local escort who is actually a gentleman who works for the port. He's my neighbor in the office, and I'm going to call him my Pied Piper. He's just an amazing traveler. He's enthusiastic. And he's enough of a nerd with a bunch of spreadsheets of how everything works. And I always download the app in every airport. It's like, really? I don't think I've ever done that. So he's going to be a fantastic leader and just get people to where they're going, and then meet with tours when they get there. We did Oberammergau, which is the passion play in Germany that was postponed for the first time in centuries, I want to say, because of COVID. And we sent a group there. So group travel is kind of a fun thing. We also recently had people travel on the Rocky Mountaineer train in Canada to go to Banff and Lake Louise. And again, we have it right next door, and it is a bucket list for many people. And that's a high-end luxury train, almost like the Orient Express. So that's a fun option. Lots of fall color trips of, on the road or on a tour or on a ship.
Sounds great.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Robin. You are a wealth of information, clearly. I'm just, I took so many notes and I'm super excited. I have a whole new interest now in cruising that I never thought that I would, but it just sounds glorious, all of the different options and a lot of things that I hadn't thought of, the women's trips and some of the family trips and going on an expedition and, and then just some of the local things that we can do too. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yes, try a travel agent. Try us once and you'll never go back. I guarantee you.
Well, I know that I don't like to plan trips, so it won't be a hard sell for me to get me to walk in there.
There's so much to choose from now. I think that instead of that being a good thing, it's become a negative. It takes a whole lot of time to pour over.
So Diane, when we send this out to clients, will they have Robin's information?
Yes.
Okay. So anyone can reach out to you, Robin, and we will highly recommend you for anyone that we're hearing about, and you guys that are on this that are listening later. You can get in touch with Robin wherever you are, right? You don't have to be here in Bellingham, because I have several friends that are outside of the Bellingham area that were very interested in this. So, right, it doesn't matter if they're here or not.
Doesn't matter. We can work by phone. We have a lovely lady that met people from Bellingham during winter in Palm Springs who lives in Iowa who swears by us now. So yeah, it doesn't
Right.
matter.
Okay. Great.
I want to thank you and recommend you as well for the waterfront property that's not on a cruise ship. These ladies are the best at finding those special places.
Thanks, Robin.
I'm trying to put your contact info in the chat. So Robin H at Bellingham
Travel.com.
And then where is your office located?
We are conveniently located right in front of the Loft Restaurant. We
Oh.
are next to the Port of Bellingham office at Harbor Center, so 1801 Roeder Avenue. It's a great place to walk around and look at the boats, get you in the mood. And we're right here.
Okay, and what's your phone number?
360-733-1270.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robin. And
Great.
look forward to chatting with you about an upcoming cruise.
Perfect.
you.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you,
thank you,
very
Robin.
much.
Okay, have a great
Bye.
day.
You too. Get well, Lori.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen, for taking over.
You bet.